So playing the intro just now reminded me that I played the intro instead of the outro last week. When
You did.
I totally fucked that up. So I guess now it doesn't matter if we edit that out.
I have not edited that episode into a podcast yet, so I apologize if there's been a delay in getting that out. I'll get both this one and last week's out.
Where's my Brian's a Slacker banner?
I know, man.
All right, so we're back again for episode 105, which will be our second episode in March, and we still have one more to go because we got to do a makeup episode to keep on track.
Right.
So tonight we're going to talk recipe design, the Mead edition,
with our special guest,
Matt Mead.
What's up, Matt? How's it going, man?
Thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem.
The whole point of this episode is I want to brew a mead. I mentioned it on the last show. I want to brew a mead. I want to brew a mead with lemons. And I was like, don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. I was planning on pestering Brian to get him to, give me all the secrets and tell me all the things that I should do. But then we thought, I think it was Shayna's idea, actually. She should be on here. Was that we should do a show and talk about it and do a recipe design. So that's why we're here. So whatever we come up with tonight, I am going to go away and make it, and then we'll come back together in the future, and you can drink it and spit it out and tell me how horrible it is, and I'll never fucking make another mead again. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have any? Go ahead.
What are you drinking?
Yeah. I'll start. I guess this is some of the last homebrew that I have until I get a New Zealand Pilsner and pre-pro lager on, but some older bottles of Baltic Porter. Hasn't been doing super well in comps lately, so I'm like, I'm just gonna drink the rest of it because I like it. So,
well, you did pretty good this last weekend, right?
Yeah, I took 2 golds of trash.
Yeah, what two golds?
Cali Common and Vienna Lager both took gold.
Nice.
And the Vienna Lager got me my 20th 43 that put me over the edge to Grandmaster 3 in the Master Homebrew program. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. More importantly, you're now a Grandmaster 3. Unfortunately, you are a Grandmaster 3, 143 behind Danny Kukic. From
two 43s now. He got a 43 at trash as well. So yep. He's at 22. He beat me to Grandmaster 3. So I think we've talked about the bet on the show before, maybe.
Yeah.
He beat me to Grandmaster 3 by one weekend, by one competition. And so we get to put his beer on tap at the Keepers of Craft booth now for MHF. Even though I kind of made the bet and the agreement without really talking to anybody else. So maybe I'll bring, my own little jockey box and keep it off to the side or something.
I was actually thinking about it, and we'll see if anybody from Masters is watching, but it would be fun to drill a hole in the fence and feed a shank and a tap and have it tapped out the back of our
Yeah.
Be like, that you got to go around back for that.
Yeah. We said it'd be on tap at our booth. We just never said where, right?
Yeah, you got to go in the back and knock 3 times and see the password.
Right on. What are you drinking, Matt?
Well, since we're talking about doing the lemon mead, I brought limoncello. Homemade limoncello.
I had some of that last summer. That was really, really good. If it's the same stuff.
It is.
I actually have some homemade limoncello in the basement that was made by Nikki D at the KGB. I should go. We'll see if I run out of beer.
What do you got, Jason?
Budweiser.
Yeah. I have one of those for when I run out of Baltic Porter. I think I have a lighthearted, a two-hearted, and a Budweiser sitting in my fridge over here.
So yeah,
I got a Dovetail Cole sitting upstairs. I'm gonna go grab when it gets a little colder.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I ran out of homebrew. I think the last show we were on, it was the first time I drank homebrew on the air in a year or whatever, and I ran out. And there
no, he's watching. Dan's watching. He says that beer's gonna be.
We'll see, Danny. We'll see. But no, I ran out. I did just brew another, or I brewed a New Zealand Pilsner. I think how many there's, Brian, you brewed one, Tim's brewed one.
I think Brandon just did one this weekend.
Brandon did one. I think Bill.
It's the in-style beer right now.
Yeah, for
Where
sure.
We have a
everybody
little
was
chat going, and
chasing,
I think
but it
all
seems
of
like
us
everybody's
got on
doing
this.
New Zealand pills.
Yeah, all of us in this one little group got onto it, and I think we all brewed like within a week of each other in New Zealand. So, I'm super excited about it. I can't wait.
I've done one before, but I didn't. I don't think I entered it in any competitions, and I need something from the local styles category for my Jack of all trades badge. So that was sort of the go-to, because who doesn't like a New Zealand Pilsner?
So for that, does it just have to score above a
30, I think.
30,
Yeah.
yeah.
So pretty much just don't fuck it up and you'll get there. Yeah.
Right on. Let's see, before we dive into the content, Beer Cup, we got a post up on Beer Cup with all of the dates. The dates are locked in now and they're confirmed. So we've got registration. It's going to be April 21st. Drop off runs through sometime late June. And judging is going to be July 20th in Grand Rapids. So if you're listening and you're a judge or steward in the Kalamazoo area, did I just say in Grand Rapids?
You said in Grand Rapids.
Oops.
Wow. I haven't even smoked crack today. Judging will be at One Well Production Facility in Kalamazoo.
Oh, you're getting me excited. I thought we were getting a one well in Grand Rapids.
Not a chance. I mean,
maybe, yeah.
Not this year. So anyway, yeah, Beer Cup's coming up. Dates are locked in. Website will be up in early April for judging stewards to start registering. I forget what date you put, Brian, but we'll have that coming up soon. So that's exciting. Beer Cup's moving along. And next week, we're back again, but we're going to be in person at Brewery Outre with Ted and maybe a Jordan. Jordan couldn't make it tonight. He's working on his house, getting ready to sell it. But we'll be back next week at Brewery Outre, where we're going to be doing some blind tastings of international lagers, specifically Mexican style lagers.
Mostly,
and,
yeah.
And Asian. I don't want to say it's not just Japanese, but
like Chinese, like
yeah,
yeah.
it's going to be like, I'm going to pick up some like acai. I can't remember all the names of them now, but anyway, we should have 4 or 5 of each that we'll be trying with Ted doing that blind tasting. So it's going to be pretty fun, kind of similar to the macro lagers that we did last year or last summer. That was really cool. So,
yeah. Well, better audio, better.
That's right.
a better setup this year, hopefully. So
first time that we're going to get to use the lapel mics in a show, not just streaming an award ceremony. All right. So I want to brew a mead. I'll tell you where my thought is, because I want to do this with. I was laughing about it. I started writing down, and subconsciously I wrote with intent, Brian. So you've trained me well.
Yeah.
So my goal here is I do want a sweet mead. I don't want it to be super dessert sweet. I do want it to be balanced with, some acidity and the brightness of a lemon, but I really am going for, on that sweeter side. So it doesn't have to be syrup, but I want it to be like almost like a lemon meringue pie, kind of. Maybe not quite that sweet, but that's the level I'm going for. I would like to talk through the entire design, how much honey we should use, the types of fruit, how to use the fruit, when to use the fruit, nutrient schedule, everything, so that anybody watching this episode or listening to the podcast later could get some kind of idea on how to, design or replicate the mead in all aspects of it. So that said, I really have no experience with mead. I've done 2 really horrible ones and one kind of mediocre one. And the mediocre one, I think Brian wrote down the instructions and I just followed exactly what he said. So
Yeah.
But in that one specifically, I remember I did not do any other nutrient additions because I forgot.
Yeah, that could probably cause a little problem there for you.
Right. It was hot and how
Yeah.
it was kind of shitty. So that said, yeah, what are as a brand new fruit mead maker, one is lemon. Am I stupid? No.
Well, I mean, you're looking at a high acid fruit, so that's the first thing you kind of have to deal with.
Yep.
And there's two ways to go about it. You could ferment up front, but you can get some really weird things, especially with citrus fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably start out with like a base mead and get it to the gravity level you want, and then I would add zest secondary. You can still add some lemon juice and stuff, kind of following like a skeeter pea recipe, but your sugars are going to be honey, and you're going to probably do water and lemon juice, and then just check your pH, make sure you're kind of in the four range for starting out, and keep an eye on it during fermentation. Make sure it doesn't drop below 4, because most lemon juice is probably 2 or below 3. So you kind of have to nullify that a bit, because your yeast is not going to like that high acid environment.
So you're saying, should I include lemon juice in the honey during fermentation, or should I add all lemon?
You could do it either way. I would probably say if this is your first time doing it, I would do it separate. I would just do your honey water base, maybe use like an orange blossom.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get done with that fermentation and have it stabilized, then add your juice back and any kind of zest at that point, just to kind of get the flavor profile you want. You could ferment the juice, but I'd water it down quite a bit.
It seems like that's going to add just too much complexity or chance of
It's a chance for mess up. So if first time, I'd say probably skip it and then add it secondary. Keep it simple. But if you get it down and you get it where you like it and you want to play around, you could try doing it in primary.
My original thought when I came up with this idea, because again, the other mead that I did, and I know that so really the only real experience I have is like doing that no water added dessert style. And so originally I thought, can I just take a shit ton of lemons and cover them in honey and get something drinkable? But then I thought, like you did, like there's so much acid in there and so much other bittering flavors from like the pith and skins of lemons or whatever.
Yeah, whenever I see people do like the what's the big one that everybody likes to do when they first start out, the one with the orange peels.
Oh, Joe's ancient orange.
Joe's ancient orange. I always kind of grimace because all I think of is all that pith, and it just gives like this weird astringency that's not enjoyable. If you were to want to do a Joe's in a modern method, because you're dealing with citrus, you're definitely going to want to use peels and keep all that pith away. You don't really need the juice, because the juice doesn't really carry over. When it ferments, the flavor goes away. Yeah. So there's not really a purpose in using the juice.
So Jason, when you imagine like drinking this, like are you imagine it being kind of like a thicker, like lemon, sort of like sweet lemon cordial type of thing? Like do you imagine having like honey flavor? Is it just like sweet lemon and maybe not a lot of honey?
No, it is. I think what I mentioned last time is the idea that I had when I came up with this in passing, which honestly, if we wouldn't have talked about it and come up with this show idea, I'd probably never do this. I think I was driving in my car or whatever and just daydreaming about it. And what came to mind was, and I know Brandon at the last show called out the skeeter pea, but really it was the hot toddy. When I was younger, that was, with my ancestors being Southern oriented or whatever, that was a thing. Grandma, I get sick. Here's, honey, lemon, tea, and bourbon together. And and I don't want to do a bourbon thing, but I have thought like maybe this is a mead that could make a mead cocktail and be really, paired nicely with bourbon, to get me to that hot toddy thing. But originally it was just that kind of that hot toddy, very honey forward, but the lemon acidity, brightness is still there.
So there's not a lot of commercial lemon meads out there. One of them that it's one of my favorites is from Lost Cause. They do a limoncello mead.
Hmm.
And from what I glean talking to Billy and just in general, it seems to me like they do a just base orange blossom and add a little lemon juice, but it's mostly just orange blossom, honey, and water, and then they do all their zest and secondary, as well as their vanilla that they're using in it. So if you're looking for something like that dessert level, but not like sickeningly sweet, so usually you're looking at like 1030, 1040 gravity for like a dessert mead that's not cloyingly sweet. You're probably gonna aim for something like that. And then there's two ways of going about that. You could do a high gravity mead that you pick a yeast that will peter out around then, or you set your gravity up to go all the way dry, stabilize, and then add your honey back and get it to that 1030, 1040 level. So really just that's what most people recommend.
Okay.
So I would probably go that route. It's the safest.
I was going to say, I want to pick that apart a bit and kind of go into pros and cons on what is the difference, or I guess, benefits of one way or the other versus, when you say letting a yeast peter out, I tend to think of death and off flavors and shit like that.
So you can use like an ale yeast that only goes like to 9 or 11%. Sometimes you might go a little farther just because of you get a super yeast that happens. You get a 14% out of like an SO4 or a USO5. I think Billy is pretty. I think when I talked to him, he's a big fan of English ale yeast just because they give fruity aspects. But yeah, I mean, you could do something like that. Then you could start at like 1120 or 1130, and then let it go down to like your 1040, 1030 range. It should kind of shut itself down once it hit its ABV limits, and then you just stabilize and do your zest and all that you want to do afterwards. That's one way to do it. You have to be patient with it and kind of let it run on its own. If you want to, you can try to shut it down, but there's always risks involved with that. I don't ever recommend it, but it can be done.
So then the alternative would be let it run its course, let it go down to terminal gravity,
Yep.
0.
Yep.
And then stabilize and add all of your sweetness and acidity.
Correct.
Basically back in
And the only thing I ever hear there, and this is I think just because the mead needs time to age, is you'll get, if you were to put it into competitions, I always hear it tastes like raw honey. Well, yeah, because it's back sweetened. It's supposed to taste like raw honey. I think you have to kind of let things kind of flavors round out with a little age if you're going to do that. So if you're looking to like drink something right away and you're off put by raw honey flavors, you might want to go the other route. But if you are going to age it a little bit, give it a few months and then taste it, it'll probably be a lot smoother. And you can also manage your ABV level a lot easier that way. So you can make yourself a standard mead. It's like 7-8%. So you're not feeling like alcohol burn when you're drinking it. Or you can even do a hydromel if you want. That'd be kind of fun to do. Kind of like the Skeeter P thing. But with what you're talking about, you're definitely going to want to. I'd probably start out and just go all the way dry. Start at like 1060, 1070 and go all the way dry. Get 7 or 8% and then back sweeten after you stabilize. And once that's done and your back sweeten is done, then you can start playing around with like lemon zest or adding lemon juice or flavorings and concentrates.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that I don't mind the time aspect, and I think running a plain mead dry and then being able to kind of control how sweet I get is probably the way that I would prefer to go. Brian, do you have any better, different pros or cons of that, or?
No, 100%. What I was actually thinking, well, not all lemons are made the same, right?
Correct. There's
So
different types of lemons. So you got
Matt,
Meyer lemons. You got your table lemons that I forget what they call those ones. And then there's Amalfi, Sorrento lemons, Italian lemons. So you have to kind of look at what kind of lemons you want and you're using. So I mean, I could talk a little bit about different lemons because I studied them for making my limoncello.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, go for it.
So your standard table lemon is kind of bright and citrusy. It's what everybody gets that puts in their water when they're at a restaurant, or it gives you that, but it also is very high in acidity. And what most people like in a lemon is kind of a nice roundness. So you might want to look at like a Meyer lemon, which is like a blend between a lemon and an orange. So the skin on those is very thin. So you have to be kind of careful when you're zesting them. But they do give a nice, I'd say a more round lemon flavor than if you're using like a table lemon. The problem with table lemon is you tend to get into the realm of things tasting like, what's that, pledge?
Or pledge.
Yeah, you don't want pledge. There's been a couple of meads I've tasted out there that were pledge meads, and I was like, nope. Yeah. So definitely the other lemon varietal that it's available in the US, but it's kind of limited, is Sorrento lemons. There's a lady out in San Diego you can get them from. They're like $50 to $70 a box of 10 pounds shipped to you. And those ones are the ones I use for my limoncello and stuff. And then if I do a lemon mead, that's what I'll be using for my zest, is those Sorrento lemons. They just give a nice, smooth, beautiful lemon flavor that it tastes. It's what when you go to the store and you buy limoncello, that's the type of lemon you're getting. So that's what you would expect when you want to drink lemons. You kind of want that limoncello lemon.
Yeah, my initial plan was Meyer because I know I know that the standard lemons are going to be that lemon pledgy, and they can be aggressive, and it's not the flavor that I was going for. I can get my hands on Meyer lemons. Like I know there's stores around here that carry them regularly. Horrocks and Battle Creek's had them pretty consistently, so it's something I can lay hands on easy. But I did. That is interesting. I'll have to look into the Sorrento lemons and see if you have her information. You can share it. Send it to me. But
yeah, it's a organics like farm out there. That's what Billy uses for his limoncello mead, and so I reached out to him and got a box and made limoncello out of it, and it came out fantastic. So
it was really good.
Yeah, so I can send you that information.
Yeah,
they're not. You'd be surprised. You don't need a lot of zest, so you could buy a small box, and it gets there in 3 days, and you only need a little bit of zest. It's pretty surprising how much the oils get pulled out of the zest with alcohol. So that, I guess that kind of goes to the other question: how do you want to get the lemons? Are you going to put them directly in the mead and let the alcohol in the mead extract it out, or do you want to do an extraction like you do for other flavorings where you use like high grain alcohol, so make a tincture?
I hadn't even thought of that. I just assumed I'd be putting them right in the mead.
Yeah, I mean, you can put them right in the mead, but that's always an option as well. There's some mead makers that basically make their own tinctures. They'll just take the skins and put it in Everclear or whatever, and then just do a dropper and add a little bit at a time until it hits the flavor profile they want.
So as we were saying before the show, I just did that with a cherry version of my Kentucky Common that I had to do for a competition, and I totally fucked that up. So,
well, that's why you do bench trials, where you kind of put a few ounces on a glass at your table and you play around with it till you find the level you want.
Oh, I did that.
Okay.
I did that twice.
And you still fucked it up.
It still messed up.
I ran through in 2 different orientations and came up with the same amount. And then scaled it up and added it, and it just totally fucking trashed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trick too, is scaling.
Yeah.
They always scale the way you think they do.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to now you know you overshot, so now you know if you make that ever again, you gotta cut back at least half and see where it ends up at.
Yeah, no, I think I'll probably just add and let it sit on the zest.
I mean, I'd start out with a small batch if you're gonna do that. That way you don't do like a big 6 or 5 gallon batch and then find out that you didn't like that type of lemon. So if you're gonna do the table lemon, the Meyer lemons, just do a small like 1 gallon batch. Get one of those little 1 gallon fermenter jars and do your base ferment there, and then add your zest, and then taste it after a day or two. See if it's giving you the taste you want. If it's bad, if it's not where you want it, then you could toss it. You're only out a gallon of mead, but
No,
not
it's actually
5 gallons. Or you could make a big batch and split it up, and then try all the different types of lemons and see which ones kind of stand out the best to you.
that's kind of where my mind was going after you said it. I was like, well, maybe I probably will do a standard size batch because that's what all of my containers are, and I'm just used to that. But I could split it down and do a Meyer batch, and maybe if I get the Sorrentos, I can do a Sorrento batch.
I mean, it might be fun. Just do 3 different ones and then bring them to one of your club meetings and go take a vote. Like, what is the one that everybody likes, you know?
Or blend a little.
Or blend a little. There you go. You got 3 different meads. That's the magic with mead making, is once you get to the advanced level, you start blending things.
Yep. All right, so I'm gonna to recap what we've got so far in my notes. I'm gonna take. We're gonna start with an orange blossom base, and I'm going to figure out what I need to get. We'll say a 9 or 10% mead to dry out. Sorry, just drawing a blank.
I think it's about 1060-ish. Is about 9%.
Okay.
We can run the numbers again over a beer or something.
Yeah.
I've been kind of playing around with this recipe anyways because I want to make a limoncello.
Nice.
Billy's limoncello is probably one of the most. I mean, it kind of like, I like his stuff because he likes to play around with like peppercorns and things, but his limoncello mead is like spot on, and it kind of inspired me. I'm like, I love limoncello and I want to do a limoncello mead. So
I guess I'm excited.
The bar's been set high, so I got to do this someday.
Yeah.
So I actually ordered like orange blossom honey. I'm just waiting for it to get here. It should be in a couple days. So I'll be kind of aiming for the same thing, but I'll be adding vanilla in mine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. So we're gonna dry it out. What is the yeast recommendation to do that? I know, Brian, you like, is it 74?
71B is a pretty popular one.
Yeah, 71B is pretty good. I don't think there's much malic acid in lemons. Like, it's all citrus, so it really shouldn't affect the flavor profile if you add any lemon juice. If you're just going to do honey and water, then it's not even a concern. Just 71B.
No. I plan on doing it. So we'll do just the honey and water. We'll ferment dry. So we're going to ferment, we'll say with 71B until it's dried. We'll stabilize. Do we need to go into the stabilization? K-meta, K.
I mean, let's talk about it for whoever listens next.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to do your sulfites first, and then you're going to probably wait 1 day and then do your sulfates. Is it sulfates? So your potassium sorbate, your sorbates secondary. So
there's a really good reference document on the Mead subreddit wiki too, because some of those are based on, one's based on sort of pH levels.
Sulfites
are based on pH levels, and the other is based on, like, I don't know, alcohol content or something. So there's a few charts to reference there.
Yeah, some charts and some calculators, so you can kind of go through what you need to stabilize it.
Okay.
Do you, Matt, when you stabilize, do you rack off of your lease first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually what I do is I do my base ferment and I get it to where it's if I'm doing a back sweetening, then I go all the way dry, and then I usually try to clarify it with like super clear or something,
Mm-hmm.
just to get the yeast to drop out of suspension really well and get it nice and clear. And then I'd rack it off the yeast, and while I'm racking it off, that's when I'm adding my sulfites. One, it protects the mead as it's going into the next container. It's blending in at that time when it's pouring into it, and and then and then I add my sulfites, or sorry, your sorbate the next day or whatever.
And the sulfites help strip oxygen.
Yeah.
So is that
So
what
they're basically looking for sulfite. Basically likes to bond to oxygen. That's why it makes a good antioxidant.
Okay.
So usually I'll add it either just before I'm racking or while it's racking. I also will, if I have a free CO2 tank, I'll drop a little CO2
Mm-hmm.
into the tank so it's not going straight into an oxygen filled container. That way it minimizes any kind of oxidation that can occur at that point.
Yep.
And then once all that standard stabilizing is done and you're racked off the yeast, then you can go into your back sweetening mode. And there's calculators out there. I think there's even one in a couple of the beer tools that basically allow you to say, hey, I have X amount of liquid. It's at this starting gravity. I want to get it to this gravity, and I'm using a solution that has 80 bricks in it, which is kind of this, for me, 80 bricks is kind of the standard for honey because it's either 79, 80, or 81. It kind of flows in the middle of that when you look at what honey has in it for sugars.
It's based on like water content and stuff.
Yeah, so sometimes some honeys are more water content than others, but most of them fall between either 79 to 81. So usually I just take 80 as a base, and
Yep.
that's what I use for my back sweetening calculations. And usually it's pretty correct. I'm within a gravity point or two.
Nice.
Good.
Danny Kukuk in chat is asking what you preferred orange blossom.
Oh, we could get
that
into
is.
that. So there's different varietals of orange blossom. The Valkyrie's horn did a really cool thing, I think last fall or a year ago, where they asked Adam Bystra to basically make 3 different meads, all orange blossom, all the same yeast, but different varietals. So one varietal came from Florida, one came from California, and another one came from Mexico. And the overall opinion from the mead makers that had tasted all of them was that the Mexican orange blossom was the brightest and most orangey, citrusy of the, and then California was number 2, and for some reason Florida seems to be in last place. So if you're looking to get orange blossom honey and you really want to have like that nice citrusy orange blossom pop, you kind of want to look at like Mexican or maybe even Brazilian orange blossom honey. It tends to have, I guess it tends to have that more of that zesty orange blossomy character.
Do you know how to acquire something like that?
Yeah, there's a couple places that sell it. Walker Honey Farms does. I think who's the EMA people that they use? The
Flying Bee or
no, it's the other. It's the bigger group. It's
Dutch Gold.
well, you can get Dutch Gold, but I don't know if that's gonna. They tell you where they're getting their orange
Mhm.
blossom from. But I do know that I know Walker's is out of Mexico and Brazil.
Okay.
So that one's usually a really good one. It's like $70 to $80 a gallon though. So if you can see it when it's an AMA deal, I'd say grab it up. I want to say the stuff that comes from Sleeping Bear is from Florida. They might get some stuff from California. It depends on where they're sending their bees, but a lot of times I think they send them down to Florida. So I would just reach out to wherever you're buying your orange blossom from, and if it's a, you know, a place that specializes in honey, they should be able to tell you where they're getting it from.
I
And
think Sean Harris has like lemon blossom
he
honey
does.
occasionally too.
He's got
I
a
don't
lemon and
actually.
tangerine.
Okay.
So those will pop up, and those are pretty good. I don't know if I've messed around with it before, and it's good stuff. So if you catch them and you can get that stuff, that would be another good one to use.
Right on.
Brandon, you're making Brandon thirsty. He says he wants limoncello mead.
Yeah. Well,
Guess he had a homemade limoncello. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Brandon, that was Matt's last year.
yeah, that's
Pretty
what I'm
sure that
drinking
you're
right
thinking
now.
of. Yeah, yeah. It was super good.
All right, so we've brewed the mead, we've stabilized it. I know that we didn't talk about nutrient additions, but we can circle back to that. So stabilizing it, at what point? So are we going to back sweeten and put it on zest at the same time, or do you?
I would back sweeten, and then once you feel it's the sweetness level that you want, then add your zest. And I would add zest a little at a time.
Okay. How are you typically? Walk me through the process of back sweetening and what you do.
I mean, just add your honey and carefully. First of all, I usually warm my honey up.
Okay.
So I'll put it in like a bucket with a heating blanket or something just to get it nice and warm and soft. And then I'll blend it into my mead. And when I do my blending, I just use the backside of a stir paddle that can fit in the carboy head, and I just slowly stir it in. It will generate some protein haze that usually requires tannins to get it to drop out, because there's just proteins in honey. And if you leave it alone, you'll start to it'll settle out on its own over time, but it takes time. So a lot of times when you see meads in the store and you look at the bottom of the bottle and you start to see like some sediment building up there, there's a good chance that sediment is protein haze. It just over time it falls out. That's just a back sweetened or the leftover honey. So yeah, you can add tannins to kind of help mitigate that. You can test it by and this is something that Tom Reppes taught me, is you can take like a 1 ounce pour, put it in a little glass jar, and then add some powdered tannins to it, shake it up and let it sit for like a week. And after a few days, if you can tell that the honey, all the haze dropped out and it's just sitting in the bottom of the jar, you have a protein haze, and that means you have to add tannins to get it to drop out. And you kind of have to just kind of keep adding tannins. The tannins will bind to the proteins, and then the weight will cause the proteins to drop out. And sometimes even a cold crash won't even do it. It's just kind of floating in there. So you can do a cold crash, but it might take a while, and then there's a good chance it could also come back on you. There's some people have seen meads that are perfectly clear, and then all of a sudden they start hazing up.
Huh.
And it's just the proteins. So you kind of got to get them to drop out before you bottle it.
So at that point, so you're back sweetening, you're getting into the flavor that you want, the sweetness that you want. Are you at that time adjusting with any acid or any other flavor compounds to blend out,
Yeah,
or targeting sweetness?
You can. I mean, you got to taste it and see where it's at, and then adjust. You got to remember that some of the zest might have a little acid in it, so I would probably do your zesting and get the flavor to you where you want it, and then once that's done, and say you got it to the lemon mead that you want, then I go back and add some citric or tartaric acid. Just tartaric's a big one in the grape. It's from the grape wine world. It's very popular. Citric is good if you're doing citrus, but if you go too far with it, you can start to cause what do they call it? Sour Patch Kid syndrome. That's what I call it. It start to taste like Sour Patch Kids. It's not. It's or vomit. It's not. It's not
Ooh.
good. yeah, if it goes too far, you can get kind of these vomity estery flavor to it. So I usually use tartaric and add a little bit of citric if I need to make it pop a little more citrusy. And usually I don't pour my acid in like as a powder. As an advanced bead maker, I learned a while ago to make 10% solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So 100 milligrams of a distilled water with 10 milligrams of your acid, and then blend it together, and then that's your solution. And then you just pull from that solution a drops at a time to find out exactly how many milliliters you think you need to add to your overall mead.
Okay.
Thus talk it kind of falls into the bench trial area there.
Yeah.
There's a really good video on doing the most about like bench trials and titration and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I don't have the link to it, but that's basically what they showed was the 10% solution for tannins and well, I think they did like a 50% acid solution, like a 10% tannin solution, but I mean, same thing. You just have to math it out a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean it's all fuzzy math at the end of the day.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
exact. We're home brewers.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if we were commercial, like I started talking to Brad over at is it Bee Nectar, right? And
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, when I was a home brewer, I used to just kind of wing it, and I'm like, but once I opened my own place and I had to get things to be the same every single time, you have to take a really high end scientific approach to it. So that makes a lot of sense if you're trying to bring out a product that every time you make it, it needs to be the same. But
Then you
for
just add
us,
a
I think
batch number to the end.
some of the fun in home brewing is the artistic side of it.
100%.
And that's kind of like playing around with it till it's where you want it at. And if you screw it up, you screw it up. You
Yeah.
learn from your mistakes. That's part of the fun, you know.
Except honey is so expensive that you don't want to make it.
Yeah, that's why bench trials are good. So
Yeah.
I'd usually do like a 5-ounce pour in a small plastic cup, and then I'll do my drops, and I'll get it, and I'll taste it a little bit, and then I'll do a few more drops, and I'm kind of keeping track on a paper next to me how many drops I added to kind of get it to where I wanted it to be. And you know, that's my way of doing it. Other people might have other ways, and that kind of gives me an idea. Okay, each drop is like a milliliter, so if I'm doing 10 drops to get where it needs, okay, then I just math it out to give me an estimate of how much I need to add to my overall mead to get me where I want to be.
I like doing the bench trials with Shayna too, because it gives me a second opinion, because my preferences aren't always like the correct ones, you know. Maybe
yeah, well, and like I like to hand stuff to
and
my wife too and say, here, try this, let me know what your thoughts are on it. It helps to, and that's the one thing with having a homebrew club or people that do mead in homebrew clubs is, you know, it's good to get their feedback on it as well.
No, I was already thinking, Brian, you and Shane are coming over when this is ready, and we'll
smash burgers and lemon mead.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I'll road trip down. We can have burgers.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So I'll bring some more limoncello. Hopefully by then I'll have my palm. I have a grapefruit and a lime one that I just got to blend the sugar in with them. So hopefully by then I'll have those ready.
Right on.
This is only slightly off topic. I haven't really brewed a mead in a while, but I noticed that I don't have a single score sheet for anything in the berry mead competition or category or subcategory. So I'm gonna have to find something to put together that qualifies for berry. Or no, it's maybe it was melomel. I don't know.
I was gonna say
one of those.
You were really the only person that made Rainbow Connection, which was a berry mead that took gold and second place best of show one year. So you have a score sheet for it somewhere.
Yeah, I'll have to look. It's one of those fruit categories.
I'm like 4 away from being like the high level master mead or whatever it is. I think Bill is 1 away.
So I don't know if you heard this story, Matt.
You think he was a point away on his last one?
Yep. I think it was.
It happens a lot to us. Like
Halloween.
I have a bunch of 37 beers right now that I just keep punching myself in the head. Like, come on, give me the extra point.
It was a brag I think at Hoppy Halloween, and he got a
Yeah.
42,
Uh-huh.
and he just needed a 43 to get that Exalted Master of Mead pin.
Yeah, he'll definitely get it before me.
Oh, he will.
Yeah.
He'll smash it.
You know, we've talked about this before, and I think I've said it, like, as judging, if I'm doing the math and I see a score sheet that comes out to 42 or 37, I go back and see it. Am I, just on the off chance that they're MHP, like, is there another point I can give it? Am I being a dick?
I always forget. Like, I just did Kansas City, and I did what was the other one I just did? Oh, Drunk Monk, and I
think
just
you judged
didn't
my
think
side.
about it. But I'm sure I probably gave a 37. I feel not a, but it is what it is. In the moment, you just don't. You always
No,
don't.
I just try to think about it and be like, okay, was there one more point here somewhere that?
I mean, in reality, is there really that much of a difference between if you're gonna get something at 37 or 38?
38.
No.
Or 42, give it a 43. Yeah.
And they're just points at the end of the day too. Like,
but you're also
really
filling out all these things, and the last thing, at least in my head, is this an MHP person or not?
Yeah.
I feel bad. If someone out there gets my score sheet and I gave you a 37 or a 42, sorry. I should have gave you a 38 or a 43. Because by at that point, it's pretty damn good, like beer wise and mead wise. So,
yeah.
Jason has to get his score sheets together still.
I have them.
Yeah, one more week, man.
Oh, it's funny. I was planning on spending time this week trying to do some home chores. I have a lot of woodworking projects that I need to do. And then it fucking snowed today.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
And
It's
the
been
whole
snowing
week
on and off
shitty.
the last couple of days.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm not going out in the garage and doing a bunch of fucking cuts and messing with wood in the driveway when it's fucking snowy and cold. So maybe I ought to. Yeah, I've got 7 inches of fucking score sheets here to go through. So I just need to
buckle down.
Yeah.
Well, should we double back and talk about nutrients again, since that was something you missed on your last mead?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I wanted to bring up, it kind of hit me too. We were talking about yeast, and if you're making a lemon mead, you might want to look at like a Lutra or a Voss as well, like Kveik, just because they throw off those. Some of them throw off those citrusy esters if you run them hot. So that would be an option as well if you're looking at ale yeast.
Interesting. Okay.
I know some people say Lutra, it ferments clean, but it gives like a lemony ester. So that might be a really good one to use on this if you're looking to like run it quick and hot.
I mean, I wasn't, but that's interesting. And it's funny. When Lutra first came out, I was a huge fan of it for seltzers. That's when I used to buy all the sugar in Kalamazoo. And
you did too.
And I was making like seltzers left and right, and I fell in love with Lutra, and I did a couple of I think I did a Lutra cider. That was boring. And I did a couple of Lutra beers, but then I've heard a lot of people lately, at least in my circle, I think kind of shitting on Lutra because it tends to strip too much, and or be too, I guess, boring.
Yeah, it's very much like, I feel like when you're talking like California ale yeast, it's very basic. There's not a lot there. So if you're aiming for a profile, I mean, there's not much it's going to leave behind. And if you run it too hot, you might blow off a lot of stuff you don't want to blow off. But I've also heard some people say that when they do their seltzers and that, it kind of leaves a little bit of a lemony ester behind. So it's always an option if you want to play around with it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and it now comes in a handy dry.
Yeah.
So
Casey loves
I know, because I have a bunch of it in the basement because Omega was kind enough to donate some to the Michigan Beer Cup. So
nice.
Not that I would go steal any of that I'm just saying I got a bunch of dry.
I have a yeast vault in my garage. I have a cooler, like a wine fridge, and I just keep all my yeast there. And I always keep a pack of dry Lutro around, and also Voss and some of the big name stuff, just because you never won't know when you need it, and you never know if the homebrew store might be closed. So
Yeah.
and usually if I use it, then I go back to the homebrew store and I grab an extra pack and throw back in my spares just in case I need it.
So
Talk
we're
nutrition.
Yeah, nutrition. So what is, in what would be the standard practice for this style of what we've talked about so far? We're going for a 9 to 10% dry mead base. What would
Yeah.
the
So
nutrition?
you gotta be kind of, so you're looking at what yeast you pick, 71B, right?
Yeah.
So you got a wine yeast. It then doesn't tend to run super fast as long as you keep it in the 60s. It'll run pretty nice and not go crazy and throw a lot of off flavors. So it really depends on what you prefer. There's been studies, I think Billy did one with White Labs, looking at what nutrients are the best for mead. And I think they came up with a hybrid plan where you start with organic for your first round to get the yeast kind of happy and going. And then you start adding inorganic. So maybe a blend of organic and inorganic. So, and a lot of times I'll figure out what the first edition would be with organic, and I'll do that pitch, and then I'll figure out if I did inorganic, then my other 3 pitches are inorganic. So I'll use like a firm K for pitches 2, 3, and then if I decide I need to do the 4th one, I'll do it on the 4th one as well.
What's the schedule that you go by?
Well, if it's a fast burner, like something that uses Kveik or it's like a hydromel, I just pitch all up front, and usually I just use organic. I don't use inorganic for that, or the blend. Sorry. If I'm doing something like this one, I'm probably doing inorganic, like firm K. And usually, but again, like I said, my first pitch is organic, so just Fermo, and I do that at time of pitch or just before time of pitch, because rehydrate my yeast properly, and then I'll add my nutrients into my must, make sure it's rolled up so there's oxygen in it, and then I'll do my yeast pitch on top of that. So, and then once the first day goes by, I get 24 hours under it, and I can see it's going. Then I start doing firm K as my pitches every 24 hours. So standard toss now for yeast nutrients at that point.
And you're doing every 24 hours, you're doing that inorganic round like 3 times?
Yes. So first, so usually what you do is you figure out, there's calculators, but basically it takes the total amount of nutrients and it says you need this much total. So divide this by 4. Each day is going to be a quarter of your nutrients.
Okay.
Okay. So the way I do it is I do the calculations both organic and inorganic. This is my way. You don't have to do this. You can do it your way and just do all inorganic or all organic.
That's the whole point. I don't have a way yet.
So I'm just telling you my way. So if
Yep.
I were to do this, the first thing I would do is my first pitch is organic, just Fermo, and I'm doing that at time of yeast pitch. So it goes right in my must, stir it up, gets the oxygen going, do my yeast pitch. 24 hours later, I'm now doing inorganic or a blend, so firm K. So then I'm doing all my pitches at that amount for that for the blend, because you'll find when you look at how much nutrients you need for organic only versus a blend is kind of double. If you so just take, I like to go to meadmaderight.com. They have a really good Tashina calculator there that Sergio put together, and I'll basically put all my data in there, and then there's two radio buttons. One says inorganic, one says organic. I'll have it on the organic. I'll write down the total amounts there, and then I'll switch it real quick to inorganic, and then I'll write down the total amounts there. And then that's where I come up with my first addition as being organic, and my next three being inorganic. And and you can use. I know some people don't have access to Firm K or Firm O. You can just do all inorganic if you want to do what do you call it? The little powder stuff. It's DAP,
Dab.
ammonium
Phosphate.
phosphate. Yeah, you can do that, but I would wait if you're gonna do that. I would not pitch that right away because it can be poisonous to the yeast. So I would probably look at getting your yeast going and waiting an hour or two, and then pitching DAP. I wouldn't put it in at the exact same time your yeast are going in because it can be poisonous to brand new yeast.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm looking at. I just pulled up Mead, right? So you're right. It's got an interesting article and a calculator.
Yeah, and it pulls up different yeast strains, so it knows Sergio built out like the Yan level for each of the yeast strains. So, and there's even one there for ale strains. So,
What a champ.
yeah, it's pretty simple. Another tool I like to use when I build out my recipes is called Must Mixer. It's a spreadsheet that's on the it's Modern Mead Makers forum on Facebook. And I don't know if I can share my screen. I could kind of show you what it looks like. But it basically, yeah, I don't know. Let me see if this present button works. Hold on.
Just make sure
Share
you're
screen.
selecting the right window and you're not showing any porn. I mean, you're
No. Actually, let's see if it'll. There, let's see if it does this. Can you see that?
you can't now.
All right. So this is the Must Mixer spreadsheet. It was written by this mead maker called Joe Vinus. I can't say his last name. It's Italian. I talked to Joe a lot when I first started making mead, and I use this to kind of help build up my recipes. So there's kind of some cool stuff in here. There's a Must Mixer side. There's a batch builder, but I don't really tend to use this. Mostly the Must Mixer I use, and then there's a food database, which is cool. Gives you some standardized bricks amounts.
Nice.
Wow.
So you can go look it up. Most of the stuff comes from the FDA or USDA. So that all that's in here. So you can go here to pull that stuff up. But anyhow, usually you can go in here. You can put like, here's kind of a recipe I was building. So here's a liter of lemon juice, 8 pounds of honey, 4 gallons of water. It gets me to 1060 at about almost 5 gallons. And then if this goes all the way dry, so my yeast I was going to use would be like, could go up to 12%. So it could hit all the way dry. So, but my final sugar amount would be like 9 ABV. And then there's also a nutrient calculator here. You can pick out high, medium, low, very high. But I still go back to modern. I go back to Mead Made Right to usually get this information. But you could use this as well as if you know for the type of yeast you're going to pitch, what type of Yan it requires. So this is kind of my starting point. I usually put in like the bricks, and I can pull that from the food database, or you can get a refractometer and put the juice or whatever on the refractometer to get your bricks levels. Refuse is if there's a material like so juices don't have really any refuse, but if you're doing like whole fruit like blueberry whatever, I would make like 4% here.
Mhm.
And then if it's a juice, like most juices have nutrients in them where honey does not and water does not. So I just flag that. It just kind of helps with some of the I think some of the nutrient addition calculations here. But yeah, I just played around with this, just kind of build out my recipe. Gives me an idea, ballpark of how big the batch is going to end up if I mess around with this stuff. So like I can make this 5 gallons here, and all of a sudden it's 5.9. So
Is that Joe Vincent Guerra? Oh, it is.
yeah,
I used to have a buddy. I not used to. I think he's still alive. I got a buddy named Vinny Vincent Guerra. So I know that name. I actually used to work on Brian.
yeah, this guy was a
Hmm.
mead maker. He was into it before COVID, and then he decided he kind of stepped away from it, and then went off and did his own thing. So
Right on. No, that's a cool spreadsheet. I'll you said that's on Modern Mead Makers on Facebook?
yeah, it's in their forum, in their file. I think it's their file directory on Google Drive or something.
Okay.
I just keep a copy of it, and then what I do is in my Google Drive, I actually just make a copy of this for every recipe.
Mm-hmm.
So then I always have like a revision I can go back to and take a look and see what I used to make my previous mead. I also use there's a document you can get from there called, let me see if I can find it here. There's a log.
We'll track some of these down and put them up on the Facebook page.
So anyhow, I use that to build up my recipes. It kind of gives me a ballpark idea of how much gravity I'm aiming for, and it's fun when you got juices that are like 1040, 1050, 1060, 70. You can punch in the bricks or the gravity, and it'll calculate it for you and tell you what your estimated starting gravity is. That's how I do a lot of my all fruit honey meads.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your heavy Shrams type meads where there's no really much water added. I'll be putting in like 14 pounds of cherries at X amount of 14 bricks, and then it comes up and tells me exactly how much volume that is and what gravity starting point. Gives me an estimate, because you can't read that. There's no way to get that with a hydrometer.
Right.
And you gotta play with numbers on paper to kind of get an estimate of what your starting gravity is at that point.
Yeah. No, it's neat. I found the spreadsheet on their Google Drive. That's cool. I will play with that later.
Yep.
I wish I would have had something like that.
And for anybody listening, I mean, that's a really good place to go for a starting point. There. They got a really good fact for beginning mead makers. I always recommended people to read that. There's a lot of good information there. A lot of stuff that we're talking about today stems from that fact.
Let me see. So this, I don't know if this comes through because it's a private group, but you can. I'll post a link to their site. It should take you to a page where you can request membership, but I'm not sure. Anyway, just look it up, Modern Mead Makers on Facebook. It is an interesting group. I was gonna say, no, it'd be cool to know that, like way back, like one of the 4th or 5th beers I ever made, I did this all watermelon beer, and I never thought about how much bricks the watermelon was going to add. I just thought it was.
Didn't it watered out your beer?
Well, no, I mean, I juiced 11 watermelons, and I used all watermelon juice to mash in and do the whole beer. But I had, in my ignorance, I had calculated I was targeting like a 6% beer, or a 6.5% beer. But I never thought, it never crossed my mind to figure out the sugar in the fruit juice that I was using as my base liquid, and so I wound up with like a 13%. What we call watermelon wheat wine.
Does that go in the experimental category?
Yeah, I went in the garbage category.
It was, you brought one to Big Brew Day like many years later, and it wasn't bad.
It was good when it was okay when it was like 5 years old. Yeah. It was hot garbage when it was fresh. I was so disappointed. Just to round that out, and I'm sure I've told this story again or 100 times, but to be a young or a new home brewer and to really want a watermelon, that's what my dream was, to make this watermelon beer, and to fail miserably like that, and then go to Homebrew Fest and drink this amazing watermelon beer and go up to the guy and get all excited and be like, "How did you make this beer?" And he was like, "I added watermelon Jolly Ranchers in the keg." And you just realize like everything's a lie. Everything's a lie. This is
Oh, yeah.
fucking bullshit. So
Oh yeah. I mean, not the yeah. I mean, you look at like when you look at what recipes people come up with and what you can do as a home brewer, there's really no like limits. You can do whatever you want. So like you want peanut butter in your beer, you can do peanut butter whiskey. You can do all kinds of stuff. So it's like it is what it is. As long as it comes out the way you want it at the end and it tastes right, then you're happy.
I think it's fun now. I mean, I was pissed off then because I was new to it and I wanted it to be real, and I wanted to use real fruit.
Someone pulled the curtain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Oz. And you
Now,
found out how it's really made, and you're like, damn it.
yeah, exactly. But now
Yeah.
it's like you try to come up with these ideas or you get this you want to brew something with XYZ flavor. I think it's almost fun now to figure out how to do that and how to do it right. And it goes back to kind of Brian again, brewing with intent. And if I'm intending to get peanut butter flavor, well, I don't want to add fucking peanut butter. I mean, you don't want to. You want to add peanut butter whiskey, or you want to go to PB2 or some
Pomeranian peanut butter flavoring.
Yeah, and understand how these flavors work. I remember interviewing multiple professional brewers. One year, I was going like from friend to friend and brewery to brewery, asking them, "What do you use? How do you get chocolate in your beer, and how do you get this?" And expecting to find out how I should be handling my cocoa nibs and how I should be roasting them and all this other bullshit because I was a pompous little prick. And I had every single one of them tell me extract. They use fucking extract. Like,
yeah, I mean that's kind of when you walk into the back of a meadery, that's what you tend to see is lots of little Amaretti bottles and things. So
I know.
That's how it works. It's
I think we talked about this.
I mean, there's no cheating. I mean, because it's at the end of the day, it's on your palate in front of you, right? And so everybody would love to do it the natural way, the artistic way, but and you can do it. It just takes a lot of tests and a lot of revisions and a lot of tweaking. And for some people, they do that, and then others you can just buy a flavoring like this lemon mead. We could just do orange blossom honey, and then contact Amaretti and get a lemon flavor, and then
I was just
blend it in.
Googling it to see because I think
They do make it. They make limoncello flavoring. They make all kinds of flavorings. So you could technically, instead of messing around with zest, you could just do it with blend it.
Yeah, there's a natural lemon. I think you and I might have either I talked with you about it at the last meeting or I talked to somebody, but I think I made that joke. Let's just make a mead and dump a bottle of Amaretti in it and call it good. Which
I've done that.
Okay.
I know, and you've won medals with it.
Yeah, Moscow Mule Mead, yeah.
Well, one of the ones that won in my category. So the guy, I think the person that beat me, he just used peanut butter whiskey.
Wow.
And it's so, I mean, but what's the difference between doing that versus taking and getting some PB2 and then blending it with Everclear and then filtering it and then adding the Everclear? I mean, it's there's not really a difference.
It's pre-made for you.
All your extract stuff is using glycerin and high alcohol. If you look at the back of the label, a lot of it's that way, or it's not that much different. You're looking at it's just apples to apples.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, early, like the first year I started homebrewing, I was at a club meeting, or we did an event downtown, and I had brewed a pumpkin beer that I worked really hard on and wound up like flooding my fucking kitchen and all of this shit with sticky, nasty pumpkin shit. And then the person that won the competition showed up with a keg of wheat beer, cracked the keg, and dumped in a fifth of peach schnapps and served peach wheat beer. And they won the little competition we were in.
Well, I mean, you look at peanut or pumpkin beers that you were just talking about. It's like everybody thinks you got to dump pumpkin pies in or pumpkin whatever, and it's really when you talk to it's just the spices.
When you
go to, you're making a nice base beer with a caramel and whatever malts you have, and then you just add your spice to your spicing level, then it's just pumpkin spice. It's not, and that's how they do it. They don't put pumpkin. They, some people do. It ferments away. It's just starches.
So Dogfish Head. So when I did my research on my pumpkin beer, I was focused on pumpkin by Dogfish Head, and Dogfish Head does use, I think it's Libby's, or they used to use Libby's pumpkin puree, which is seasoned, is already seasoned.
So they're just getting the seasoning from the puree.
Right, and that's what I learned later, and I did well. Like that beer has won awards. I think it's one of my higher score sheets too, like in the vegetable
Herb vegetable, yeah,
whatever category that is. But I went through all that hassle of adding, a copious amount of Libby's and having that sticky, nasty mess, to deal with and shit like that. And then years later, having to rebrew it for some reason and just doing fucking cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, and just tincturing it. And it was just as good. And you can tell the difference. And it was so much easier because you're right. It's everybody that thinks a pumpkin. Well, first off, here's a lie. Anybody that thinks that they've eaten pumpkin pie and they're actually eating pumpkin, you're not. Unless you make a pumpkin pie where you get the pumpkin from the field and turn it into a pie, you've never actually eaten pumpkin.
Yeah, they're just blending like a bunch of squash to a flavor profile.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the same when you buy juice at the store and you look at the back of the juice. They blend like 3 different juices together to get the flavor profile of the juice they're selling you.
Yeah, it's mostly apple juice, right? Yeah.
Apple juice or grape juice in a blend of cranberry or whatever.
Filling has absolutely no pumpkin in it.
Yeah.
But everybody that associates pumpkin and pumpkin spice latte and all that other bullshit, it's just cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and ginger.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it falls in the same space. I mean, it's just if you're having to do things on a large scale, you're not gonna put things in your process that are gonna impede or slow you down, right? You're not gonna add all this pumpkin because now you got to go clean all that pumpkin out of your fermenters, or it's sitting in the bottom of it's clogging things. They're just not going to do it. It's the cleanup is too big of a hassle.
Well, now to try to pull it back on topic. So we've talked about splitting the mead and doing a Meyer lemon versus Sorrento lemon, but now I'm actually thinking about maybe I do a gallon and dump some fucking amaretti in it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Like here's my idea, right? Do 5-gallon batch of orange blossom honey at 1060, ferment it dry, stabilize it. Take the 5 gallons, split it up into 1-gallon batches, and then do your zest for each type of lemon. And then your other 2 gallons, you could have just a neutral one that has nothing but orange blossom honey. And then you could do one that has that. You could dump a limoncello in it. Or amaretti. You could use their flavorings, and then taste them all and see which one kind of hits the most. Or if you blend 1 or 2 of them together, see which one kind of hits the best.
Mm-hmm.
Just put
if one toast tastes like Pledge, then dump that one down the sink because Pledge mead is not good mead.
Let's see. All right, here we go. I'm ordering my.
There you go.
Amaretti. So
12. That's a steal.
That is. How big is that container? Is that a 750?
Shoot, you probably could contact them and ask them if they could throw one in the box with all the other.
Off of you before I want to put on. I mean, it doesn't have my credit card number, but
they're pretty cool. I've talked to them before when I went to MeadCon. They actually sent me some stuff. The oatmeal cookie mead I made that I got second place at NHC is just a raisin mead that I added amaretti oatmeal cookie flavoring to. And they gave it to me for free, and one bottle did a 3-gallon batch, and it came out great. So their stuff is great.
Yeah, we've got.
And they're really nice about helping out homebrewers.
Jason, that bottle was for lemon, not limoncello. It looks like. By the way.
Well, I was just doing lemon.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm doing limoncello.
Yeah, we have met the Amaretti rep for our area, and she has shipped me a case of shit before. And I am actually reaching out to her for beer cup, but I wasn't going to bother her for this. It's a 25 fluid ounce,
which I think is
which is
750.
a 750.
Yeah, it's the tall ones that
Yep.
it has a pump it comes with that they
Mhm.
use at like your coffee shops or wherever. If you guys were at Lost Art, they keep some in the back for seltzer. So
Oh,
they'll
cool.
have a base seltzer, and then you can add your flavorings to your base seltzer. And it's kind of fun. You can mix and match and come up with different flavors.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I actually before I sold my house and the bar that I built downstairs, I had like 7 or 8 different little Amaretti bottles, and I made my seltzer and left it plain, and then anybody that wanted to drink a seltzer at the bar could, pour a glass and mix in whatever flavor. But yeah, so I'm gonna get that. We'll play with the Amaretti syrup. I will definitely be getting Meyer lemon. I'm gonna look at the Sorrentos and see what I can get, and if
Yeah, I'll send you the lady's information. This is actually right now. So when she emailed me previously, she gave me the dates, and she said between January and May is Sorrento lemon picking. So now would be the time to reach out to her. And like I said, I think it was like maybe $50 to $70 for a 10-pound box, which is plenty. You can zest it all, freeze it if you want, so you can use it later. And then if you want, you can make lemonade out of the juice of the lemons, and it's really good lemonade. My wife made some from the last box that I got. So, but yeah, I'll send you the information.
Yeah, shoot it to me. I'm just looking online, and yeah, it's. I see several different sites that are claiming they're selling them, but if you got a lady that you trust,
yeah, I put it in the chat, so you
cool.
should be able to see it there.
Awesome.
Yep. It is. I think I got her card here too somewhere. Here it is. So Linda Zazar, Zaiser, Rancho del Solo.
Sweet.
And yeah, they sell the Sorrentos, so they're pretty good.
That's awesome. And you're getting, you said $50 for 10 pounds?
Something like that. I think it was like anywhere between 50 and 70. She ships them in like a UPS, a large UPS party mailbox. So you get there like in 2 to 3 days. It's basically the same boxes that Sean sends his honey from Hawaii in. Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. She actually says they'll customize the order to mix.
Yeah, you can get all kinds of different fruit from her. She does
a
bunch of different citrus stuff.
All right.
So I will say, when I've had her send me stuff in the past, usually when the box comes, there might, of the lemons, 1 or 2 might be more ripe, start getting some mold on it. Usually I just wash them off, cut that off, and reuse the rest of the fruit. Because it's all good stuff.
I haven't technically started the new job yet, so I shouldn't go spending $500 on a mead quite yet. But I'll look at it.
You're not gonna spend $500 on this thing.
Like I said, you could save all the zest and you can make limoncello. You just go grab a bottle of Everclear and toss all your
I'll
zest.
definitely do that. Well, if I get a box, a 10-pound box from them, then yeah, I'll make limoncello and
tell you.
All right, so we circled back on nutrients. Typically, when you do something like this where you're adding a zest, what's your process for that? I mean, you put the zest in. Are you tasting it every so often before you crash it off, and then?
Yeah, usually I let it run a day, 12 hours. Then I'll get up in the morning and test it. So I'll do it in the afternoon, and then the next day I'll get up in the morning and go taste it, see where it's at.
And then if it's good, are you crashing, or what are you doing to find out the?
Rack it off the zest.
Just rack it.
So Depends on how your zest goes in. If you're zesting with like a zester, like where it makes the little bitty pieces, like I forget what those kind of serrated zesters or whatever they are. Those tend to get everywhere and get stuck in things. I'm not a big fan of that. I usually use like peel, like a zester you use for an old fashioned. If you got to do a lot of lemons, I'll use like they make this tool. I think Home Depot sells it. It's called a Roto Express. It, it basically it's it's a little motor and you just puts the fruit on it and spins it, and it has a little um has a little blade and it kind of peels the fruit
Hmm.
for you. So if you got to do a lot of them, I would recommend using one of those. Again, that's another thing I picked up from Billy at Lost Cause. That those guys were doing it. I was like, well, if you got to do that many lemons, there's got to be a way to automate that zesting. So
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to sit there and microplane 10 pounds of fucking lemons.
yeah, the zester makes it very easy.
What's it?
They can kind of come off the zester every once in a while, but just put them back on, and it does a pretty good job of minimizing the pith. So I've used that, and then it makes these little strings, like it looks like spaghetti noodles, and I'll just throw it in a bag and then suck all the air out of it, and then throw it in the freezer. And
Right
then
on.
I pull off of that as I need it.
So you're pitching that in, you're tasting after 12 hours, and then pulling it back out.
Yeah, I'd either rack to a different container, or if I have it in there like in a bag or something, I can pull the bag out. I do that.
Okay. Am I missing anything, Brian?
I don't think so. I really think we hit it all.
I mean, the only other thing you can do is tannin additions, but I feel that's more of a at the end you kind of taste it and see if it needs a little tannin dryness, biting to kind of balance the sweetness. So you can always add tannins even before you ferment or even after you ferment. Just kind of play around with that. It's the same as you're doing your acid additions. So
Magic powders, Opti White, Booster Block.
yeah, I play around with that stuff. That's more advanced stuff. Opti White's nice because it has antioxidant features in it, so it helps minimize oxidation and browning, especially if you're dealing with fruit. It's pretty nice to use when you're dealing with like white wines and apple juice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my ciders, I'll put it in it just to keep the ciders when they get oxygen to them, they don't start browning on you. So I mean that's nice to use. FT Blanc is uh, a nut based tannin, and it's used in a lot of white wines. You can play around with using that. That's what I usually add if we're talking about the protein haze issue when you back sweeten. Usually I'm adding that as my tannin to see if it drops the protein out. So there's multiple added benefits for tannins. I mean, there's antioxidation properties. It helps clear out haze, and it improves the overall roundness of the mead in your mouth when you're tasting it. So
Right on.
so definitely add some sort of tannins and at various points along the line. Just taste it and find out where you want it at. But it'll help with clarification and things as well as oxidation.
Cool. Well, I'm going to go through and play with some of these calculators, and I will try to write a post up in the next couple of weeks about the recipe that I'm going to use, the process that we're going to follow, and the results of this, and then I'll get on it. And I'm not sure exactly when. I've got to order some stuff sooner than later, and then as soon as it's ready and we've got some product to taste, we'll circle back and do maybe like a home mead review on air.
Nice. It'd be super fun.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. I've been I took like almost a year off, I feel like, from brewing, and I've just started brewing again. I brewed a couple of times, and I'm just getting the bug back, and that's kind of and I want to take it, do some more meads. Been wanting to do some more meads. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to do different meads. kind of falling into the ballpark of doing hydromels and drier meads. So things that are in the dry or semi-sweet category. So, like I just did a triple berry mead with Hungarian oak that I've fermented at like 7%, and I'm planning to add a little bit of stabilize it and add a little bit of fruit and honey back just to kind of give it a little pop. But it's supposed to stay dry, almost like a red wine. So that's my plan with it. But that's kind of what I've been playing with lately is I'm getting away from all the heavy, sticky, high final gravity stuff and playing around with more of the dry stuff.
I like that stuff. But I've again, I haven't really done a lot of mead, and you know, I know at least from my taste right now, and what my wife likes too is kind of probably leaning towards that sweeter side. We tend to drink more sweeter wines, but again, I don't want to go with candy syrup too sweet. It's too, you know, I don't want to go that far, but
I don't ever find myself drinking any of it when I make it. Like I'll make it and I'll send it out to competitions, and then it goes off to like parties and stuff, and I share it with everybody else. But I never crack a bottle for myself.
No, I mean, well, and you saw like
within the 6-7% stuff.
You've given me, you know, several bottles over the years, and I still have most of them because I'm the same way. I don't. But
I like sharing it with people and getting like their views and how if they like it, and that's more fun for me. Like I'll bring it to the party and share it with like you guys and get your guys' feedback, and to me that's more fun than me sitting there drinking it myself.
Yeah,
you know, it's more fun to share it with friends than it is to sit down and just drink it straight, because it's a lot of sugars, it's a lot of alcohol, and it's not like a beer. Like it's almost like drinking like a very sweet stout, you know, like a pastry stout, and you can only drink so much of that. Like an ounce or two is enough for me.
No,
you know.
No, you're fine. You're right. I can't drink like any of that shit. It's funny. I hate pastry stouts right now. I tried the other day. We were somewhere, and I was like,
every once in a while I'll have one, and it'll be decent because it's not overly sweet. And it has nice like adjunct flavors. They're don't taste artificial to me, so it still tastes like a beer. But I've had some that just taste like sugar motor oil. I can't drink them. My body just does not like them. Like I already know I have like health issues if you drink too much sugar. So it's already one thing to kind of try to stay away from them. But it's another thing just flavor wise on your palate. They kind of just coat your tongue, and they destroy any kind of enjoyment of any other beers when you have too many of them.
Sure. Right on. Well, I appreciate it. I am excited about this. I'm gonna, like I said, I'll get some stuff together, and I'll get some posts made.
My Orange Blossom Honey should be here, I think, Wednesday. So I'll probably start mine up then. But the only difference between I think what we talked about today and what you're planning on doing and what I put together is I'm just gonna add a little lemon juice. See how that goes. It could totally go sideways on me. I tried to do this once before, and I didn't really adjust the pH enough, and I totally killed my yeast.
Oh wow!
And I could never recover. I don't know if the yeast just, when they died from the acidity, they just like poisoned it, and no other yeast would go. I ended up dumping it. So I'm gonna be very careful about how much I blend in and taste it, and make sure it's not overly acidic. And if I have to adjust it with some, potassium bicarbonate, then I'll do that. But we'll see how it turns out. I'll bring you guys a bottle when it gets done, and we can all try these lemon meads and see how they turned out.
Right on. Well, I think, like I said, we'll be back next week at Brewery Outre with Ted, drinking international lagers blind. This one I feel better about because there's no Hams isn't in the lineup, so we're not going to.
I know. I think we voted that down like last place in our first round.
Yeah,
We did
it was
that.
sad.
Wow.
There's nothing like a good hams when you're wanting like a table beer, like just
Yeah, but what happened was all of us here are like self-proclaimed lovers of hams, and we all
yeah.
shit
And
on
then you all said that was the worst of the beers. It's like people who like complain about Budweiser and then they go back and try it, and you're like, oh, this is really not as bad as I thought it
We
was.
voted that our top one.
Yeah, I
Budweiser's
think
a
it's
good
actually
beer.
pretty flavorful when you have a Budweiser. You're like, oh, surprisingly, there's a lot going on here with this. You
I
know,
will still shit on Bud Light.
yeah,
I'll
that
shit
one,
on most any light beer.
that one's tough.
Light. But
Coors Light's still kind of my go-to.
Mhm.
I still like that when I'm hot, or I just want something basic and light. I like the apple esters and stuff that you get on it, but
yeah.
it's like drinking hams. Or PBR. A lot of people like PBR.
I drank a lot of
you know,
PBR yesterday. Green
mhm.
PBR.
Green PBR.
Mm-hmm.
I had a few Guinness as I slowly made it.
There you go.
But right on. Well, guys, I appreciate it. This has been very enlightening. I will go and create a fucking recipe and see how bad I can fuck this one up.
Cool. I'll be right there with you fucking up recipes. We'll see how it goes. It'll be fun. That's part of the fun of this hobby is being able to like experiment and
Oh yeah.
play around.
Right on. Well, cheers, fellas. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'll see you next week.